With all of this turmoil, particularly this last week, has the president at any time thought about stepping down before or now?
No, and I think that's an absolutely ridiculous question.
Well, nobody can quite, in the light of day, tell you why the Stormy Daniels story is so significant, but clearly it is, judging by the airtime it gets. It's more important than the looming war in Syria, more important the fact our economy is being eclipsed by China, more important than the vanishing American middle class or the tens of thousands who will die of drug ODs this year. In fact, it matters so much that President Trump should consider leaving office over it. Does anyone who doesn't work in the media believe that? Britt Hume is our senior political analyst here at Fox, and he joins us tonight. So, Britt, maybe I'm blinded by my reflexive revulsion about this story, but is it, in the scheme of stories, considering the world is on fire and changing faster than we can keep up with, is the Stormy Daniels story as significant as the airtime it's getting, do you think?
Of course it's not. The problem with this story from the start has been this. It doesn't tell us anything about Donald Trump that we didn't already know or should have known. Indeed, this story itself came out, at least the piece of it that he had this liaison with her, came out before the election. Americans who voted for and against Donald Trump knew, or should have known, that he was a habitual philanderer. He'd made a great public spectacle of it in the past, that he was a man with a taste for flashy women. The story was entirely credible and remains so to this day. And the fact that he denies it is a detail. I don't think most of the people who are for him think that his denial is true. But it simply doesn't rise to the kind of level you're talking about here, unless you want to take very seriously the possibility that the money paid to keep her from blurting all this out sooner was a campaign contribution that well exceeded the proper limit for campaign contributions. That is about as big as you can get it to be, as far as we know.
That seems like a pretty tenuous connection to news. Just me. By the way, I think the other channels have covered this exclusively since we started 28 minutes ago. I mean, that's all they've covered for this hour so far.
Well, I think there's a lot of excitement about the search of the Cohen offices and so on. But when the question that still you have to answer here is, what really is the underlying crime, and does it rise to the level of something for purposes of impeachment? Or, as the questioner at the briefing said, the possibility that Trump would resign. That's an interesting question, of course, Tucker. Does anything about Trump's behavior in reaction to any of this suggest that this is a man contemplating quitting? I would say, obviously, palpably not.
I'm not sure that he or anyone in the White House fully understands what would happen if Democrats take the House this fall, as many polls suggest they will. It seems like the very top of their agenda will be impeaching President Trump. That's what their voters want. Yesterday, Congressman Beto O'Rourke of Texas, who's running against Cruz in the Senate race, said he would vote to impeach Trump, although he acknowledged it wouldn't make sense to do it right now. But Democratic voters want impeachment. Do you think Democratic members, if they take control of the House, can do anything but start an impeachment?
Well, I think there'll be moves in that direction. Of course, the last time this was done, when the case of Bill Clinton and the charges there were, among others, perjury and obstruction of justice that were pretty thoroughly documented. He'd obviously lied to a grand jury. They did it. They impeached him in the House, and he was not anywhere near convicted in the Senate, and he ended up leaving office in something like a blaze of glory. And it kind of backfired politically on the Republicans. And Democratic politicians, those in the House of Representatives, might be given some pause by how all that turned out. But you're right about the base. The Democratic base cannot stand the ground that Trump walks on. They want him out, and they want him impeached, and they want their members to be part of the resistance. Little Mr. O'Rourke, running against Ted Cruz in Texas, seemed a little confused about how impeachment worked because he's running for the Senate, and the Senate doesn't vote to impeach. The House votes to impeach. The Senate votes on whether or not to convict. But that aside, his sentiments reflect that of many Democrats, and I think there'll be a move to do it if, in fact, they get control of the House. How well it will work out for them politically remains to be seen.
It does remain to be seen. Britt Hume, thanks, as always. Great to see you.
You bet.
Well, all the geniuses here in Washington are unanimous on this question. We must attack Syria, and anyone who asks questions about why we must attack Syria is obviously, by definition, working for Vladimir Putin. How has this happened? How has almost everybody in power lined up behind yet another military intervention? Is the public crying out for one? Glenn Greenwald has watched this fairly carefully, and he joins us next with an answer.